Hello, good evening, and welcome back. Well, the only way that we're going to reach this social justice utopia is if criminals are left free to roam the streets. As we see from the Daily Mail online, Met Police will record the ethnicity of people pulled over in cars under new 6-month pilot amid criticism over stop-and-search methods in the capital, because at the moment the force only needs to record ethnicity of people stopped on foot, not in vehicles. And, of course, you will understand that this is with a view in order to push equal stopping based on the population, not on the prison population, on the crime that is committed, kind of a meritocratic view, if you will. Have they warranted being stopped? Not on that, no, not at all. Instead, the idea is, in order to ensure that, hang on, we've stopped 4 people today and 3 of them have been black, so let's just wave through all the black people until we stopped some more white people, and then it's okay, righto. In which case, or of course, flip side then, if you've stopped too many white people and then you can't stop any more white people even though they could be a criminal. Is that the idea? It does seem a bit ridiculous, instead of stopping people on the merit, or I suppose the opposite of merit, for what they've done and would deserve to be stopped in the first place. Just trying to bring race into this, or ethnicity into this, is skipping the whole point of why the police are there. Surely the police are there to protect laws and borders, not to fill out quotas. Although, with Sadiq Khan taking the lead here, then of course they're to fill out quotas, as he wants to increase the black population in the police population up to 40%. Sorry, the BAME, there we go. Up to 40% over the next 2 years, because that would then reflect London's population. Does that mean that he wants to increase the prison population to 40% in London to reflect the population? Or not? No. Right. So it's only the good things. So it's not being applied equally, so what's the bloody point? It's just, it's a buffet, isn't it? It's just a pick and choose. It's like, well, we want more representation there because it favours us, but we're not going to take it there because it doesn't favour us. And let's not forget that if you are stopping a vehicle, it's very difficult to know what ethnicity they are until you get around to seeing the driver. As I'm sure you know as well, if you're driving by and you see a car in front of you, and let's say then the license plate is scanned, or they're driving erratically, put yourself in the police officer's shoes. If you then stop that vehicle, how are you going to know what ethnicity they are? Or do you have to tail them for a while first in order to discern what ethnicity they are before you stop them? Is that the idea? Giving them a greater chance to flee the scene. Which there is an example which we'll get onto from the article. So Sadiq Khan said the plan would address concerns about racial profiling. How's it going to address them though? Because if it does come out, all your fears come true, that black people are stopped more often than white people because of either the crimes being committed at the time, seeing as 46% of traffic crimes were from the black population as of, I think it was 2005, 2006. There you go. In the UK. Then how is that going to help your racial profiling system there? Are you going to be honest and say, maybe we need to have a chat about culture and decide that there are things that are worthwhile to be exemplified, that we could all live along more peacefully and amicably if we had the same values? Or are you just going to shout racism and just strip people from their position if they're doing their job as police officers? Which is it going to be? So critique was brought to light during Black Lives Matter movement last summer. Yes, which doesn't have any standing here. The whole idea is that more black people than white people die in police custody, proportionally, which is not the case in the UK. Got no standing. Okay. Athlete Bianca Williams was stopped part of racially profiled stop and search. Oh, was it? No, it wasn't. There was a lot of youth violence happening in the area. They saw the vehicle. It was driving on the wrong side of the road, so the police tried to stop it and it sped away. So they tailed in, stopped, and then detained the occupants, which was Bianca and her boyfriend at the time, or her partner, sorry, and their child was in the car. I'm sorry to say, seems unnecessary detail, but okay. They were handcuffed and detained while the vehicle was searched. The police officers didn't find anything, and that was the end of it, or at least it should have been, but no, of course it wasn't, because it had to come out as a racially profiled incident. I've been stopped by the police as well and had to sit in the back of a car while they go over details, because I travel for work, and therefore my car being licensed somewhere that I'm not driving it was cause for concern, especially because of car cloning and because of the pandemic, not being allowed to drive further from your home. I was stopped. Got to the back of the car, explained the situation to the officers. They made a note and they let me on my way. Simple as that. Are we going to kick up a fuss about it? Was I racially profiled? No, I'm not going to. And that is why you don't see these things. If I tried, nobody would care. Next, Labour MP Dawn Butler accused Met Police of racially profiling her in August. Why was that? Well, of course, it's because police officers were entering license plates and entered a digit incorrectly, because it was registered in Yorkshire, the one they entered, instead of being there in Hackney. And so they stopped the car. And it wasn't Dawn Butler driving at the time. It was a friend of hers who was clearly not black, as we'll get onto in a minute. And she kicked off a fuss about that, of course, and that's why we know about that. So it was a police error. They were going to search the vehicle, that was the idea. Once they realised their mistake, they didn't, and they let them peacefully go on their way. And again, should have been the end of it. But it wasn't, because Dawn Butler just relishes in these things. Of course she does. She didn't fear for her safety whatsoever. She was pleased that it happened. And then, as I said earlier, the force only needs to record ethnicity of people stopped on foot at the moment, not in vehicles. But they're going to change that for a 6-month period. But we all know what government policies are like when it's just a trial period. Yeah, like just 2 weeks. How'd that work out for you? So, they go to mention the things I mentioned earlier. Not in sufficient detail, mind you. And Cressida Dick, of course, weighed in on the Bianca case, saying, it's clearly racism that's going on here. And of course, then it was put through for investigation, the IPC, the internal investigation, a few times over, and found no wrongdoing from the officers, because legally speaking, there wasn't any wrongdoing by the officers. They were just doing their job. But that doesn't stop Cressida Dick coming out to fan the flames and to say, it was definitely racial profiling. Well, that's not helping. If you want to talk about destroying the trust of the institutions when it comes to protecting people equally, these kind of statements don't help whatsoever. So London Mayor Mr. Kant has called on Home Secretary Priti Patel to order all of Britain's police forces to record the race of those stopped to see if particular ethnicities are disproportionately questioned over others. Well, again, if they are causing more of the crime, they're going to get stopped more often. Why are we breaking this down on race? It doesn't seem to be an issue unless you are just a race grifter or race baiter and wish to make everything about race, in which case you will find the evidence you're looking for because you will manipulate statistics in order to prove your own point. Similarly, they can be moved around the other way. Somebody will say, it seems that black people are disproportionately represented in prison. That is because of systemic racism within the justice system. Somebody else will look at it and say, I see that black people are more violent than white people. Neither of those are necessarily true. Or maybe they're both true. Or maybe it's somewhere in between. But you will find statistics and evidence and purport it in order to fit your own narrative. It is very easy to do that. So what are we going to do with this new data? I would like to know what it is that you're trying to figure out and what it is that will affect before we get to the end of this, so that you cannot change your mind retroactively in order to say that it always proved your case all the way along. If it comes out and that there isn't any difference in the racial profiling, or the ethnicities of who is stopped, then what? Are you then going to say, that proves the point, that there's a problem with the justice system and that BAME people shouldn't be in prison so much? Is that going to be your point? You're going to fit the narrative either way, aren't you? So what is the point? I would like to know before this starts, in order to know what the point is that you're trying to prove. Okay? I want you to pin your colours to the mast and let us know now, before the end of it, when you can change your mind so that it fits your narrative. And as I said at the top, Mr. Kant has ordered the 40% recruitment target by 2022 because, and this is for BAME recruitments, changing from 19 to 40%, because 40% of the London population is BAME. So which things have to fit the ethnicities of the area? And of course, it gets better, doesn't it? It really, really, really does. That when it comes down to national things, as it used to be, like seeing people on TV, then they would, of course, say, oh, well, we've got to bring it up to the national average. But if it fits the narrative to say that it's more to a local area, then we're going to have that instead. So in more white communities around the country, then they're going to have the national averages because it benefits the BAME population more. But where the BAME population is higher, then we're going to have the local population as a reference instead, just to, help things out. And I'm sure they're then going to break it down by boroughs as well. So 40% overall, but in these boroughs, of course, there's a higher population of BAME, in which case we need to raise those standards. It's like, oh, so should we drop them in the other boroughs? Oh, no, of course not, because that would be racist. Because now you're just hiring based on skin colour. Yeah, hang on. Do you know what you've just said? So he is also convinced, Met Police Commissioner Cressida Dick, and this didn't take much, did it, who admitted her force is not free of discrimination, racism or bias, that officers will have to review, stop and search and justify incidents to community panels. All of them? All of them? What kind of officers will you be recruiting with this? You'll either be recruiting people who will not be doing their job, or sadists, who will find a way around it anyway because they will manipulate people. You're not helping. You're just making it more difficult for the honest police officers who are trying to do their jobs well, serve their community, and keep us safe. That is who you're pushing out by doing this. But yes, when you say her force is not free of discrimination, racism, or bias, I mean, we have a different opinion on which way that swings than she does. But yes, individuals will have individual discrimination, racism, or bias. Cool. But by having protocols to follow and it being in writing and straightforward, that is what mitigates these effects. Okay? And by people knowing what is and is not acceptable, that is what mitigates these effects. So by removing things that could be based on bias, as in, so the people are not aware of ethnicity, that is going to be removing this bias. However, that would not fit the victim narrative, so that is unacceptable. Because, hey, otherwise we might end up with equality. And that's not good. No. Certain ethnicities have to be given special privileges. Great job, guys. Great job. So, Commissioner Dick, obviously, Sadiq Khan doesn't like stop and search. As the data shows that black people are 3.5 times more likely to be stopped and searched than white people. Yes, right. And, well, they're about 10 times more likely to be committing the crime than white people when it comes to, like, carrying a weapon, for example. Yeah, right. So 3.5 times more likely. Well, they're getting off quite lightly then, as far as I'm concerned. But what, you don't like that? But Commissioner Dick has claimed that stop and search tactics are saving the lives of young black men in London. Yes, definitely, as Boris Johnson showed, or Sadiq Khan proved, when he tried to stop it, and did. The Commissioner said black boys are 9 times more likely to be murdered than their white counterparts. Yes, and of that, it's 9 times more likely to be by another black male than a white counterpart. But that's nice. At least I suppose we can point at it from that way. Then we do not have to point out who caused the crime. Fine, let's not do that. And let's just look at the victims instead, which are mainly black. In which case, let's just push that. If we get to the same outcome anyway, then why not? Let's get on board for that and keep it going. So yes, black men in particular are more likely to be on the receiving end of violent crime than white men or any other ethnic group, in which case we must do what we can in order to help out those black men and boys. Cool, yeah. Again, it comes back to culture. It comes back to having a stable family unit and a nuclear family. Can we address these things, please? So, responding to the latest 6-month pilot scheme to tackle allegations of racial profiling, Mr. Khan said, "I welcome the launch of this pilot, which was a key commitment in my action plan to improve trust and confidence in the Met Police." It's not going to do that, though, is it, dude? "We've listened and responded to the continued frustrations of black Londoners who are concerned that they are 6 times more likely to be stopped in a car than a white person." Right, but 10% of the population, 46% of the car offences, or in London it's greater, it's 40%. Okay, cool. Fine. In which case, more for the traffic or car traffic violations as well. Okay, So that's understandable then. 6 times more likely to be stopped in a car than a white person, and this pilot will help us to begin to assess and address concerns about racial profiling and disproportionality in our city. Right, but again, you're just going to make it fit your narrative, so don't care. Here's the video that I was going to show you. Don't bother, the video's flipped. Let's say it's on selfie mode in order to, say that she isn't trying to lie to people to say she is driving. But instead, let's just mute it because nobody wants to hear her. As she pans over to the driver, which she is about to do there, as you can see, obviously the face is blurred, but by the neck, that is not a black driver. Evidently. She wasn't driving, and she was suggesting that at the time, and a complaint was filed against her for that. And you can see in the reflection of the sunglasses there that she does not have a steering wheel by her legs, but her counterpart does have a steering wheel in front of her. So she flipped it instead. If I was the editor here, I would have flipped those photos back so that it's more accurate. But I suppose accuracy isn't so desired. But thank you for wearing sunglasses, Miss Butler, because that proves that the video is flipped. Good to know. As does the police report at the time, but okay, fine. And just goes on to more details. So that is the end of that. We've gone into details about what happened with Miss Williams as well. Very unfortunate to be handcuffed. Given the situation, obviously the police investigations into it of misconduct have discovered that was acceptable, and also that they did not carry on searches afterwards, showing it wasn't racially profiled, otherwise they would have done that at least. Or at least that there would be another string in the bow to suggest that it was racially profiled, but they didn't search because they realised it was not what they thought it was, in which case fair enough. But I will come back to what I said at the top, that you cannot see the ethnicity of somebody when you're driving and they're driving. So trying to suggest that this is being done because of racial profiling is facetious. Perhaps a quarter of the time you'd be able to see the ethnicity before you stop them. But the vast majority of the time, you can't, especially if it's dark. Which, funnily enough, happens to be when the crime happens because you've got the cover of darkness. But hey, that's it for me. So, as always, let me know what you guys think down below. What point do you think this is trying to prove for Sadiq Kant? And what point will it actually prove that he'll then, try and recreate afterwards so that it fits his narrative? Or am I wrong? Is there a lot of racial profiling going on and you can easily see ethnicities in cars? Let me know down below. Always intrigued to hear what you guys have to say. And as always, until next time, have a good one.